She started coming in on Tuesdays. I know that because Tuesdays are slow at the Verada, Jude. And I notice things when there's nothing else to do but wipe the same stretch of counter until the laminate loses its shine. She sat at table 4. The corner one, the one nobody else wants, because the bench leans slightly left and the window looks out onto the refuse. Loading dock rather than the street. She never asked to move. She ordered a black-pressed coffee and a bowl of whatever the grain special was, and she ate without looking up. And she left a clean tip in hard currency, and she was gone before the lunch crowd started drifting in. I am not what you'd call observant by reputation. I've been running the Verada counter for 19 years, and the regulars would tell you I barely remember their names. But there's a difference between not caring and not watching. I watch. I just don't say much about what I see. She was Vathri. Tell from the bone structure, the long jaw, the slight elongation above the ear, the way the light caught her eyes at a certain angle and found nothing quite human behind them. Her skin was the color of old bronze left in the sun, and she had dark rust-red hair that she kept braided back, and her eyes were a gray-green I can only describe as the Kelvari Sea in the hour before a storm. She wore plain clothes, a gray work tunic, worn boots, a jacket with no markings. She looked like every off-world laborer who filtered through the Yarrow settlement each season looking for contract work, except for the way she held herself. Not proud exactly, not stiff. She occupied space with a settled authority, the way a load-bearing column holds a ceiling. Not straining, not demonstrating, just doing the thing it was built to do. Her hands were steady when she lifted the cup. Her eyes, when they moved, ran a quiet systematic scan of the room that I recognized from men I had known who'd spent time in difficult places. Not jumpy, not afraid, taking inventory. Week 2, I noticed the mark on her left wrist. She wore the jacket always. The heating coils in the far wall ran hot that Tuesday, and she took it off while she ate. And I saw the mark for about 4 seconds before she noticed me, noticing and put the jacket back on. She did not look up when she did. Just a smooth motion, unhurried, the practiced ease of someone accustomed to small concealments. It was a linear mark, pale against the bronze of her skin. Not a scar, too deliberate. The kind of mark that gets put on a person rather than happening to them. I had seen marks like that twice before, both times on Vathri nobles I met during the resettlement years. I didn't say anything about it then. I looked it up instead that evening after close. Week 3, a man came in 40 minutes after she arrived. He was Vathri too, a different kind. The too loud kind. The kind who take up 3 chairs worth of space in a room and want you to know it. He had 2 others with him, both large, both standing, in the careful way that means they're on the clock. He scanned the room once, found table 4, and smiled like a man who has finally located something he misplaced. He walked over and sat down uninvited. He started not moving when his 2 companions shifted to bracket the table. They were speaking low Vathri dialect, and I only have the trade words. I could read the shape of the conversation. He was presenting papers. She was not looking at them. His 2 men had closed off the table's exits. She had her hands flat on the surface and her eyes fixed on a point 18 inches in front of her, and her jaw was doing the thing jaws do when the owner is deciding whether a situation is still manageable. I came around the counter with the coffee pot. Refill? She looked up at me. The 2 men turned. The loud one, who had been mid-sentence, stopped with the particular irritation of a man whose authority has been interrupted by something he considers beneath him. Having a private conversation, he said. His trade tongue was clean and educated. Understood, I said. She's been here twice as long as her cup, and I run a full-service counter. I poured the coffee slowly. Then I straightened and looked at him. You want to show me your documentation? Settlement code requires paperwork filed with the Yarrow Compact Office before any private collection action. I keep the forms behind the counter if you need them. He stared at me. We are representatives of House Vathan. A fraudulent claimant is operating in this settlement, collecting tribute and trade concessions under a false identity. We are here to verify and remove. Her name, I said, is Saren Vathanor. The room went the particular kind of quiet that happens when something unexpected is spoken aloud in a public place. I had pulled the compact archive on Vathri noble lineage markers after week 2. The mark on her wrist matched one entry in the entire record, the ore line. The secondary sovereign house of the Third Vathri system, declared formally dissolved 4 years ago, in proceedings that I now understood to be manufactured. The fraudulent claimant you are looking for, I said, is the one who filed the dissolution papers, not the woman sitting here. I looked at her. I'm sleeky. It took me 3 weeks to say something. I wanted to be certain before I opened my mouth. She held my eyes. You looked up the lineage registry. I had the time, I said. The two large men had stepped back. The loud one was reassessing with the visible discomfort of a man who has misjudged the terrain. There will be legal proceedings, he said, to me. There will, she agreed. I expect them to go well. He left. His men followed the way. Men leave when they've already lost something, and haven't yet decided to admit it. She finished her coffee, and then came to the counter and stood in front of me. You've been watching me for 3 weeks, she said. I watch everyone. Not like that. I thought about it. The way you sit. Nobody who grew up doing contract work sits the way you sit. It isn't about being proud. It's about knowing where the exits are, and having already thought through what each of them costs. She was quiet for a moment. My house has been in dissolution proceedings for 4 years, she said. 12 settlements in 8 systems. Closed by people who would have opened them wide if they'd known my name. And doors opened by people who wanted things from the person they thought I was. She paused. Are the first person in 4 years who saw what I was and said nothing for 3 weeks while they made sure. I didn't want to be wrong, I said. You didn't want to get it wrong, she said. Those are different things. She held out her left hand, not to shake it, just open. The lineage mark catching the light from the cafe window. Siren, she said, in case you wanted it from me rather than the archive. Merit, I said, in case you wanted to know who you've been tipping. Something moved in her eyes that I didn't have a precise name for. The compact proceedings took 6 months. The dissolution was overturned. Fraudulent filing was traced to a collateral branch of House Vathan, operating in bad faith for the better part of a decade. The ore line was formally restored to full standing. She didn't come back on a Tuesday. She came back on a Thursday, my early shift, and sat at table 4 and ordered black coffee and the grain special. I brought it over without a word. She was looking out the loading dock window with the same steady inventory-taking eyes. Without looking up, she said, the court is restored. 6 other individuals whose claims were suppressed by the same filing are being contacted. She paused. I wanted you to know the full extent of it. I appreciate that. She looked up then. I come back to settlement sometimes, she said. When I have reason. I picked up the coffee pot. Tuesdays or Thursdays, I said. Table 4 is generally open. She nodded once, and I went back to the counter. And the noon crowd came through the door the way it always does. Loud, ordinary, carrying their ordinary concerns, entirely unaware of what had been quietly settled at table 4. Which is how most things go in my experience. You see something that matters. You take the time to be sure. You say the right name. Then you go back to work.